If you've been at recovery for any length of time, you probably understand the fact that there is something that just happens. We call it, Samantha and I, we call it uh, chaos. There's this point of just chaos where everything that can go wrong can go wrong. It's as if nothing is going in your direction, and you sit back and you say, what the hell is happening? Why is this going on? And it's hard to really describe, but we think recovery should be easy because it's so noble, right? We think, listen, I'm trying to do the noble thing. I'm trying to save my marriage or forgive my spouse or reconcile with my spouse. So the world, the universe should align and reward this nobility. I want to tell you that's the exact opposite. I have learned you can have a noble cause like saving your family and saving your marriage, but don't call it pessimism, call it reality that what can go wrong will go wrong. I stand amazed at the fact that we had so many times of pure chaos where it just struck us like, you've got to be kidding me. Now, if you subscribe to faith, you call that Satan. If you don't subscribe to faith, call it the universe. I don't know. But at the end of the day, there's like this resistance that comes against you. At one point during our recovery, there was a series of events that happened over 48 hours that we just stood and looked at each other like, I can't believe this is happening. It seems unexplainable except to the person that's been through it, because when you see them, when you talk to them, when you describe it, there's a little glimmer in their eye because they've walked through that same chaos, that same destruction, that same overwhelmment that will just exhaust you. It really will. What I have learned in recovery, and I try to say this as often as I can, is that it really requires bravery. And I can tell you that early on in recovery, I was scared to death. And I think being scared is pretty common. It's a pretty normal occurrence, especially for the unfaithful. Some of you betrayeds may say, you're scared? Well, we're scared of you, number one. Number two, we're scared to lose our family. Number three, we're scared of our consequences. So there's a lot of fear that goes into our kind of recovery walk. But I'll tell you, you've got to be tenacious if you're going to pursue recovery. You're going to have to make tenacity and grit a part of who you are, or I'm sorry, I'm not going to say you're not going to make it. It's going to be that much harder, that much more difficult, and you're going to want to faint and quit far more frequently than if you approach it with a brave, tenacious, confident, bold approach. I just will tell you, when the lights came on, I started to realize, you know what? I've got to be brave. I need to ask you today, how fragile is your recovery? And let me give you a story. Early on, things were starting to generate some momentum. It was around 18 months, 22 months, something like that. And money was tight, but we had some positive momentum. We had just moved into a new house. And so there was, days or weeks where it was like, yeah, and then there was a couple of days here and there, it was like, I hate you all over again. And I was building a bookshelf in our house. And again, there was a series of events. One of my children had stitches that same day because they had been pushed into a fence. Another one of my children had another health issue that came up out of nowhere. And then someone hit our car at lunch. There was all these crazy things all within a day. And so at night, I'm building this bookcase. And it's one of those bookcases that, you've got a million parts and you don't know what you're doing. And if you're anything like me, your stress builds kind of through the day. Your stress builds and then you drink some coffee, you level out. And your stress builds and then there's chaos and then there's a trip to the ER and then there's a hit and run and then there's all this stuff. And then there's some tension between you and Samantha. And I was building this bookshelf and then Samantha was like, you should do this. And there's a part of me that says, why are you telling me what to do when I have the instruction manual and I have the Holy Spirit? I don't need you. So there was this moment and we finally snapped and she said her magic word, which I can't say. And then I said my magic word and then the music came on and I lost it, and I took one of the poles from the bookshelf and I started destroying the bookshelf from IKEA. And parts are flying, whatever this, I don't know if it's wood or what, it's breaking, pieces are flying everywhere. And Samantha, who has ran out of the room, now has come in the room and she's looking in going, and then I remember I stopped and I just looked at her with this battled piece of wood, whatever, and I just looked at her, and then she kind of was like, I'm going to walk away. I know. Some of you may be judging me. Hey, most of you that have been there are not, because you understand the littlest thing can push you over the edge. So here's the moment I want to tell you about. So we have a rough night. We don't talk. The next morning, we kind of have this moment, and I said, I'm sorry, I lost it. And she goes, well, I'm sorry, I was really rude. And I said, it just gets to me. Like we're trying to do what's right. And it just builds up and it gets to me. And she said something to me that really changed my life. And it changed the way I understood how she saw me. I was like, it just gets to me and it just pushes me over the edge. And she says, yes, but it concerns me that if that's all it takes to throw you for a loop, I'm concerned about our future, because that's pretty fragile. And it really stunned me. And everything in me was like, I don't want her to see me as fragile. And I asked her, I said, do you see me as fragile? She says, no, but in those moments, you're snapping and the kids are around and we're having a difficult moment, but we've already come through so much, so I was just so surprised that that little moment would cause you to snap. She says, we've been through far more than that. And I said, you know what, you're right. So a couple of observations. At some level, there's this moment where everything kind of builds up and you do snap. So let's push that off to the side. But more importantly is, if your recovery is so fragile that the littlest of things cause you to snap, whether you're unfaithful or whether you're betrayed, it really depends upon time. If you're early on, man, the littlest look from your spouse can cause you to snap. But you've got some time if you've got some time underneath you and you're a year, 2 years, whatever down the road, and you've done some good recovery work, I just want to encourage you to not be so fragile. Because it steals from you and the way your spouse perceives you, but it steals from the overall security of the relationship. I think one of the biggest revelations that you will find as you start to generate some significant momentum is, I'll end with this story. So I was at the March EMS weekend, and I've had a difficult time with one of my children lately. And I was driving to the EMS weekend early in the morning, and I had this moment. It was like, wait a minute, wake up. And I was thinking about the reality of how, wait a minute, and for me, subscribing to faith, it goes like this. It's like, man, if God could restore our marriage, which was completely shattered by betrayal, how could God not intervene and heal this part of my relationship with one of my children? And my hope is that you continue to get healthier and healthier, and your marriage hopefully is restored, or you personally experience restoration from one of the biggest traumas of your life. You'll be able to one day go, wait a minute, if I can survive this infidelity, this pain, this betrayal, this war, what is this? I can handle this because I've already been through this.